Coordinate geometry consists of plotting points on an xy plane. The standard format we use to describe each point is parentheses, the x value, comma, the y value, and then close parentheses. The x and the y value, they describe how far away the point is from the center or the origin of the xy plane. The x value describes the left and right, with right being positive and left being negative. The y describes the up and down, with up being positive and down being negative. So if I were to plot the point 4, -3, that would mean my point is going to be 4 to the right from the center of the chart and down 3 from the center. Or right 1, 2, 3, 4, down 1, 2, 3. So that's my point right there, 4, -3. If I connect any two points on my xy plane, I can create a line, and each line can be described in terms of its slope. The slope is how much it changes up and down, or how steep is the line. For example, if you visualize a hill going up like this may not seem that steep, or it has a low slope, while a hill going up much faster would have a higher slope because it's steeper. As the line moves from left to right, if the line goes in an upward direction, we say it has a positive slope. But as you move from left to right, if the line were to go downward, we say that line has a negative slope. Some people describe the slope as the rise over the run, which means how much is it changing in the up and down direction over how much is it changing in the left and right direction. Or you could describe the slope as the change in your y value over the change in your x value. So if I wanted to calculate the slope of my purple line here, I could start by figuring out the x and y values of my 2 points. My first bottom point, well, I go left 1 and then up 1, so the coordinate of that point is -1, 1. On the higher point, I went right 3 and then up 4. So the coordinate is 3, 4. Both are positive. Then to calculate the slope, I'm simply going to measure my change in y and divide that by my change in x. My change in y, well, on the low side I started at 1 and went up to 4. So my change in y was a positive 3. For my change in x, I started at -1 and then went right all the way to 3, or I changed by moving to the right positive 4 spaces. So my slope is positive 3 over positive 4, or a slope of 3/4. The standard equation for describing a line on an xy plane is y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is where that line crosses the y-axis. The x and the y will change depending on where you are on the line. So in this equation here, I know that the line is going to cross my y-axis at the -2 position, so I can plot my first point. Then I know my slope is 4. I could rewrite that as 4 over 1, or my change in y is going to be a positive 4, and my change in x is just going to be 1. So I take my point, I go up 4 positions, and then I'm going to go right 1 position. And then I connect my 2 points. Even though I've only drawn 2 points on my line, in theory the lines will continue on infinitely into space. So my final line might look something kind of like this. Sometimes a question may ask you to find the distance between 2 points on a line. There is an equation to do that, but for your exam it's going to be much easier to just translate those 2 points into a right triangle. From there we can just use the Pythagorean theorem, which of course is a squared plus b squared is going to be equal to c squared. It doesn't matter which legs you use for a and b, but your c is always your slanted side. To figure out my a and my b, I can just count the number of squares in my triangle. So if I start in the top left and count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the leg on my top triangle is going to be 6. Then go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's my other leg. Now the equation for my right triangle is 6 squared plus 7 squared is going to be equal to c squared. Or 36 plus 49 is equal to c squared. Or 85 is equal to c squared. Square root everything, and I get c is equal to the square root of 85. And that's my final answer. The distance between my 2 points, or the hypotenuse of my triangle, is the square root of 85. A question may also ask you to find the midpoint, or the middle of a line. And you can do that by simply averaging the 2 coordinates on your line. So in this case, my top point is over 5, up 3. And my bottom point is left 4, down 1. Now I'm going to find the average of my x's and the average of my y's. To find the average of my x points, I'm going to add them together and then divide by 2. So I get 1 over 2. Same thing for my y point. Add my 2 y points together and then divide by 2. So I have negative 1 plus 3, divide that by 2, and I get 2 over 2, which is 1. And that's the midpoint of my line. Over 1/2, up 1. And then if I plot that point going over 1/2 and then up 1, visually it looks like that green dot is right smack dab in the middle of my line. And it is. That's my midpoint.